shine, I'd be lost in the dark night. Lacy, put me in your top 8 when you might space me and never replace me.
Welcome to a very special edition of the Lords of Podcast Roundtable. Tonight, we have a very special guest. He is probably one of the best promo men, in my opinion, in the industry right now. His accomplishments, as you've heard earlier on in the show, he numerous in number, I guess you could say. Jimmy Jacobs, welcome to our show, sir.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for that semi-flattering and mostly awkward intro.
I definitely apologize for that, but like I said, I am a big fan of yours. Not as big as a fan as my buddy Cold, but definitely a big fan, especially being a short guy myself, if you forgive me for saying so.
Well, thank you, and yes, I am short as well.
The first question I did want to ask you is something that is a kind of a current event going on with the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, ending wrestling as part of one of their events in 2020. What are your personal feelings on this happening?
Oh, I have no personal feelings on that whatsoever. Professional wrestling and amateur wrestling, it would be a stretch even to call them distant cousins. There's no similarities really between the two.
Oh, I definitely agree with you in that. I do believe I'm of the same mindset. A lot of the people that I have heard championing this cause of let's piss off the IOC and boycott this and so on and so forth. I do believe it's for a lot of show, but how would you feel for something replacing it? Like, are you a fan of MMA at all, or do you follow that?
I don't really follow MMA. A few years ago, I think, when, I had cable, I watched some of it. But no, I don't really follow MMA. I don't think I watched 1 second of the Olympics this past summer, I think it was on. So no, I'm not a sports guy. I'm an entertainment guy.
I definitely could see that. My next question, seeing as you just said that you're more of an entertainment guy, like I've said in your introduction, I do believe that you are one of the best promo guys in the business right now. And a lot of my concern with promos, as it were, especially if you see on, WWE, particularly with The Rock, it's more catchphrase driven. And I know you're more of a storyteller guy where you get into the head of your opponents and try to bring up personal matters and blur the line. How do you feel about the evolution of the promo, per se?
A lot of it sort of depends on your audience, right? Like you talk about The Rock, and in the Attitude Era, you had a lot of casual fans coming in, and the casual fans, it seemed like their attention span was possibly less. That they were more drawn in by these catchphrases, and the catchphrases are awesome. I mean, that's great. It's cool. I wish I had a cool catchphrase. But comparatively speaking, look at the audience in Ring of Honor from 2006, 2007, when I was doing a lot of like sort of intricate storylines with Lacey in the Age of the Fall in 07, 08. I think we were fortunate to have a die-hard fan base, one that was intelligent and could digest and had the patience and the caring to digest sort of longer promos that told these more intricate stories, and they followed along with what we gave them. And I was fortunate to have that audience at that time, to perform my craft in front of. And the WWE, their promo style now, it's not as quick-paced as it once was during the Attitude Era. Punk will cut a promo, take a minute, he'll talk for a while. I mean, the stuff Punk was doing, last year or so, or now year and a half ago. Jesus.
Yeah, it's been a while.
You're right. The promos he was doing with him and Cena together, back and forth. The back and forth promos he was doing with Triple H. The one he with Vince McMahon. And these are long segments, and there was some deep stuff, and he continues to do so with him and Paul Heyman. And I even saw the Shield this past week. They had a decent amount of promo time. They were given a platform to say pretty much what they wanted to say, too. It's all a matter of style and what works for you.
Now, I'm glad you brought up the Shield, because me personally, I see a lot of similarities between the Shield and the Age of the Fall, and maybe I'm looking a little bit too much into it because, your former partner, Tyler Black, a.k.a. Seth Rollins, is a part of the Shield, but do you personally feel that there are similarities between the two groups?
Oh, I mean, there's similarities in anything in wrestling, and I don't want to be that guy that everybody in wrestling thinks they invented everything. I don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, clearly, it's just like the Age of the Fall, and, Dean Ambrose is sort of the main mouthpiece like I was, and the Samoan, he's the muscle, he's the enforcer like Necro Butcher was, and Tyler Black is Seth Rollins in the group. I don't want to make those sort of comparisons, and them talking about injustice and all that stuff, similar to what we did. No, I mean, we didn't. Of course there's similarities, but it's wrestling. I don't see it at all as the same beast whatsoever.
Oh, I definitely agree with you. There's similarities in everything, but just like Evolution is a similar to the Four Horsemen, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, and everybody, wrestling's funny. Everybody just always wants to say they're ripping off the NWO. Like people in the NWO will say now that the Shield's just trying to be them, or it's like anybody who's ever been in a faction, before, they'll say that people are ripping them off. Everybody's invented everything. It's funny.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Mr. Former Tyler Black, how is it to see your former partner on such a higher platform than, say, an ROH or the independent scene? And to follow that up with another question, with his signing to the WWE and being on the main roster, as well as guys like Bryan Danielson, Daniel Bryan, and CM Punk, do you see yourself potentially in that same position now that the thought process of having, these huge, larger-than-life guys has completely flipped in the WWE?
Those are two very distinct questions.
Yes.
First of all, I'm extremely happy for Tyler. I texted him last night after I saw I just saw their promo they did on Monday last night, and I texted him just saying dude, you're wrestling John Cena on pay-per-view. And he's like, how do you feel about that? I'm like, dude, it's awesome. I look at the lineup, and it's, The Rock versus Punk, and Moxley and Tyler are wrestling with, Cena and Sheamus, and, Bryan's in one of the Elimination Chamber matches, and it's just continuing. Their developmental system, NXT, is basically, our guys, our generation, my generation of guys are owning that shit right now. With Sterling James Keenan, Corey Graves, and Chris Hero, and
and now
Pac,
recently El Generico.
Yeah, Pac's down there, Generico's down there. Sarah Del Rey is one of the trainers down there, and there's more signings to come. They're raiding the independents right now, and in the next few months, you're going to see a lot of other guys, I'm sure, show up down there. As for me, right now, probably no. I was down there. They called me up. This is last May, and they called me up to come down in June for a look, go down there for a week. So I was down there the week that Sarah Del Rey was there and El Generico was there, and we had a week-long tryout, and I was with them. And it went well enough. They were looking at me as more of a mouthpiece, some sort of role in that capacity, a Sean Devari type role is what I was told. And they liked me, and they liked me enough, and basically I was told, we like what you do, we like you enough to hire you, but it's just a matter of, like, it's like we're not just going to hire you. There would have to be a character written that you fit for, like a casting call. When we need a Chris Angel rock star oddball looking character, you're the guy I'm calling. So that may happen in 6 months, that may happen in 2 years, and that may never happen. So that's where I stand with the WWE, and it's validating enough that they like me enough to say they'll hire me, but I don't have a reason to believe they'd be blowing smoke up my ass. Yeah. So I mean, my guess is probably not. But you never know. The kilter, the temperature, the business, it's changing there, especially since Triple H took over. And this is the time. I was talking to Tyler about this last night, man. This is the time that I had been talking about years ago, when being led by Punk, and now these other guys following with Bryan and Tyler and Moxley and all the guys down in NXT. I mean, this is our generation, and our generation is going to start to take over. And with these guys, they're starting to see that guys that have dedicated their lives to this business and the time and made the sacrifices to hone their craft. These guys, while they're not all physically larger than life, these guys are turning into long-term investments, and they're making the company money. Make no mistake about it. CM Punk and Bryan Danielson are making that company money right now. And if they want guys cut from that same mold, which clearly they do, they're going to the right places.
Indeed. Once again, this is Lords of Podcast Roundtable, and we are here live with Jimmy Jacobs. Now, Jimmy, I'm glad that you brought up your time in ROH. One of the questions that I personally had, because to be honest with you, I'm not particularly caught up with the current developments in ROH. I'll catch it here and there, but tell me a little bit about your time with Steve Corino and the ROH World Champion Kevin Steen and your work with Scum. How do you feel personally your work with that compares to how you were working, say, in 2008, 2009?
Oh, jeez, man. That's a hard question. Look, I really enjoy working with Steve and Kevin, because those guys are two of first of all, they're professionals and they're awesome, but they're also two of my good friends in the company. So I enjoy that. As far as what I am doing compared to what I have done, look, Ring of Honor recently released a DVD of a compilation DVD of mine that you can pick at ROHWrestling.com. It's called The Jimmy Jacobs Story, From Love to Hate. And I got a copy of it, about a month ago or so. I got a copy of it, and it's the first time I've seen a lot of that stuff, and some of it in years. And watching through it all, I was sort of taken aback. Very proud of the content on there. And it's the first time I'd seen a lot of the stuff with proper perspective. When you're immersed in something, it's really hard to see what it is. And looking at it, seeing the stuff we did with Lacey and how cool some of that stuff was, the storyline wise, and the Age of the Fall, and how emotionally invested a lot of people were in that. We did some special stuff, and it was a bit of a wake up call that I am not as emotionally and mentally immersed into my work as I once was. When Gabe was booking there, him and I used to talk on the phone all the time and collaborate all the time. And he would give me homework to do and videos to shoot and things like that. And it kept Ring of Honor on my mind 24/7. And that was, it was a daily thing for me. Since I've been back at Ring of Honor, it's been I've taken more of a laid-back approach, which can be fun, but it's sometimes more rewarding to see the fruits of your labor, and not just having fun with your buddies, which I am. So seeing that DVD was a bit of a wake-up call as far as what I would like to start doing compared to what I've been doing the past few months, performance-wise.
I'm actually really, really happy that you answered that way, because one of my follow-up questions was, which was your preference, working with Gabe or working in the I guess you could say more corporate structure of Ring of Honor. So
yeah, that's a hard comparison. It really is, because Delirious, like, when Sinclair bought the company, basically Cornette ended up really with the majority, I think, of the creative control, which I think Cornette's an amazing mind, but I don't think him steering the ship was the way to go. Now that it's just Delirious, as a head of creative, as Booker, I have a lot of faith in his creativity, because he's a very, very creative guy. One thing that I wish, however, is that him and I could collaborate more. But the job that Delirious has is different than the job that Gabe had. With Gabe, it was, Kerry Silken owned the company, and he basically gave Gabe free reign to create whatever he wanted to create, and which was amazing. Looking back at it, the creative freedom we had to do whatever we wanted to do on that platform. I mean, I don't know if I'll ever have that again. Now we're dealing with a bit more of a corporate world, and Delirious's job, it's not just the creative aspect of it. It's not just booking. It's not just dealing with all these wrestlers and everything. He's got to deal with an office, like with a real corporate office, and a lot of his time is spent, I know, sort of being the liaison or the translator between our carny world and their corporate world. So I'd like to collaborate with him more. I don't know if we will ever have the luxury of the time to collaborate more creatively, unfortunately.
now, do you feel that the reason why you won't have as much time to collaborate with them will be because they don't quite understand you as a character?
No, I don't think it's quite that. I think it's I'm saying that a lot of Delirious's time is spent dealing with the office side of things. So, as opposed to Gabe, who almost exclusively just had to deal with the creative aspect of it. Delirious is deals with creative aspect, but so much of his time and energy is spent in the sort of in this corporate world and dealing with things on that side of the job. So, so it's just a bit of a different beast. That being said, since he's taken over creatively, I've already seen some things that I really enjoy, and I do have faith in him he legitimately is one of the most creative people I've ever met. I mean, that's not blowing smoke up his ass at all. He's a very artistic, creative guy, and I do have faith in him. And in the short time that he's just taken over by himself, and there's some cool things that I think have happened. I think Charlie Haas's character has turned this amazing corner. I think Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly have a cool thing going on, and from what I've talked to Lyris about some of the stuff that we're doing, I think that's cool. I think the Truth Martini character, I think what he's starting to turn into is going to be really exciting. So there's already like this change. So even if I'm not co-piloting the creative process regarding my character with him, I do have faith that my character in his hands will be taken care of.
Now, with that being said, once you do, eventually hang up the boots, do you see yourself in a capacity where you could be writing for an ROH or an AAW or booking or something in that fashion? Does that interest you, that avenue?
I don't know if I'm ever going to hang up the boots, buddy. I think, I think I'm a lifer over here. Possibly. The truth about me is, I was sort of. It's funny you say this, because I was sort of taking inventory on myself yesterday. In this book about this book, the success principles, how to get from where you are to where you want to be, and so I'm taking inventory on myself and realizing that one of the things that I've been in a lot of different respects, I'm not that good at being creative by myself. I'm not that, even with Gabe, I wasn't booking these things, certainly at all by myself. But what I have been good at, in different scenarios too, not just with wrestling, is collaborating and adding a lot. With having somebody else there, I think I add a lot to almost like assist in a creative process. So I don't know if being a booker is a job I could actually do. And if I did do it, to be honest, I would probably get a bunch of my friends to help me out, and then we'd, then I'd take the credit for it. So if there's an opportunity like that, sure, I would love to, but I think the job of a booker is so insanely hard, man. You're balancing 30 guys, trying to make everything they do mean something, and creatively, which is just hard enough, trying to come up with new different things when everything in wrestling's been done to death, and trying to create these new characters and all that stuff creatively. Plus, you got to deal with the 30 guys too, and make no mistake about it, man. You got people calling you up saying they're not happy with this, and on days of the show, guys aren't happy about things, and they think that, hey, you're blowing off this feud too early, and we can get more out of this, and this should happen, and I'd rather work with this guy, and I think, so you're dealing with, a hard job creatively. You're dealing with the guys, which is hard. And in a case like Delirious, you're dealing with a corporate office that doesn't understand, our carny pro wrestling world entirely. So it's a tough job. So I don't know if I would ever have the balls to really take that position.
Once again, this is Lords of Podcast Roundtable, and we are interviewing the great Jimmy Jacobs. Jimmy, to change direction, one question that's really prevalent in a lot of these interviews, and I know you've probably been asked it before, and I'm trying to be different here, but it's something that are on a lot of the minds of our listeners and readers. One paragon, I guess you could say, in the wrestling industry right now is, of course, John Cena. He's the standard bearer. He is I guess you could say, the face of the industry as of right now. What are your feelings on him as a worker?
I think John Cena is amazing. I think he is an anomaly. People like to shit on him, and I know his body language isn't necessarily aesthetically pleasing, but make no mistake about it, in the ring, John Cena tears the house down a lot. Like, he's had some, like, really good matches with a lot of people. As far as, if anybody wants to complain about his work rate or something like that. He's had so many, like, really good matches. I mean, just stuff. I was there in Chicago when he dropped the belt to Punk, and that was amazing. And him and Shawn Michaels had all these great matches, and he had good matches with Umaga. He had some good matches with Great Khali. Him and Edge, and him and Rob Van Dam. He's had some not so good ones too. But all that aside, look, John Cena first won the top belt in 2005, right? So 8 years ago. John Cena has been the man at that company for 8 years. And when you think about the average lifespan of somebody in the WWE right now, it's about 3 years. If you get a 3-year run, you're doing pretty good. For 8 years, he's been the top guy. When you think about how quickly things move nowadays, 8 years being the top guy on TV is insane. It's amazing. This isn't Hulk Hogan being on top for 8 years when, he's wrestling on TV once in a blue moon. This isn't, Bruno Sammartino and, the business just moved a lot slower. This is every month we're selling a pay-per-view. Every month, we're trying to, get these buys, and we're trying to put asses in seats. We're trying to intrigue fans. And for 8 years, this guy has been the man, the top guy, and he's always been over, and he's always evoked this, the emotion from the fans. He's always been over, whether people love him or hate him. He connects with these people on such a level. His character really hasn't even changed. And 8 years, he's managed to do that. And on top of that, he's managed to grant like 300 wishes from the Make-A-Wish Foundation. He's a media machine as far as what he does, outside of the days he's wrestling. John Cena is like, he's the man. He's the man on every level in this business. And if you are in, hey, as a fan, you don't have to like John Cena. But if you are in this business, if you are a professional wrestler and you say that John Cena sucks, then you have no idea what wrestling is. And you have no clue. You are clueless if you are in this business and you do not look up to John Cena as being the standard bearer for what an incredible performer and a dedicated performer is.
You can't see me right now, but I'm fist pumping because I'm agreeing with everything that you're saying. Something that's sort of related to this, but more of a standard bearer in the other big company, and a man that you've close personally worked with, Austin Aries. How is it to see him doing well in a company that I wouldn't say isn't big, but it's certainly on a smaller scale? How does it to see him be named a world champion on a, I guess you could say, national level like TNA?
I was so happy for him. I might have cried when I saw he won the title, or at least shed a tear, for real. I consider Austin Aries all around as good as a professional wrestler, good as a worker, talker, all that stuff that encompasses being a pro wrestler. I consider him as good as anybody in the world. And he succeeded on the independent level. But he was getting old. He was getting older, and something needed to happen. And he was really talking about hanging it up. And Aries is a very smart guy, and he could probably do anything else he wanted to. And he was really I think he was, people talk about leaving. I think he was pretty much done when he got the call to go back to TNA. And for his talent to finally shine through on a national level and get the recognition it deserves, I'm so happy and relieved. He said this to me one time, and it just always stuck with me as the sort of, like, it was it was depressing. We were down in Florida talking, and I think Dave Meltzer said this about him years ago. I think it was Meltzer. Basically said something along the lines of, if Austin Aries was 6 inches taller, we'd be talking about him like he's the next Shawn Michaels. But instead, he's just going to be a cult favorite on the indies or something. So basically, it's this 6 inches is what was going to keep him from being on a level of, like a Shawn Michaels. And I thought it was very sad but true. That's he's as talented as anybody else I've ever. He's as good as a worker, as talented as a guy I've ever worked with and have ever seen. And it's sad that I know his height probably played some part in that. But to see him now finally get the credit he deserves, could not be happier for him. Just so happy for him.
And that's high praise coming from a man who's worked with the likes of an Eddie Guerrero and so on and so forth. Which probably, by the way, is, and I know it's not saying much because it's kind of a squash match, but it's probably one of my favorite matches of yours.
Thanks.
Moving on, I know you're a big Twitter guy, and I know not everybody in the wrestling scene is into the social media, which is kind of asinine considering it's a great free way to promote yourself. But what are your feelings on wrestlers and the social media presence? And a kind of follow-up question, do you believe that wrestlers should be in quote-unquote kayfabe the entire time they are on said social media?
Well, look, you should, like, if you are in any sort of business where you're trying to promote yourself, you've got to be on social media, really. What was the first question about it? I'm sorry.
Just really, it's asking your feelings on it. I know you do enjoy Twitter, but is there other avenues that you'd like to pursue, like say a Reddit or an Instagram, just to get more of a personal aspect to your fans?
It's exhausting, man. Like I peaked on MySpace, dog. I like MySpace. And, since that went south, I haven't been as thrilled with social media. You have to do it. Everybody's got their sort of their style on Twitter, and it's definitely I don't say an art, but it sort of is. I try to tweet things that are I don't say funny or whatever. I try to not shill too much. My Twitter isn't just constantly saying, hey, look at me at this show, buy this DVD, do this, do this. I try to make myself somebody that's entertaining enough to follow. I don't tweet excessively. So when I do try to push something, I hope it means something. So that's my theory on Twitter. And no, I don't think that you need to stay in kayfabe character the whole time. I think there's a time and place. But look, I mean, it's so. This is a weird subject. Wrestling has done this to itself. When you say you're a pro wrestler to somebody, they say, oh, that fake stuff. I mean, when you say pro wrestler, people say fake. And pro wrestling has brought that on ourselves because we've tried so hard to, this kayfabe, this idea of kayfabe, and like I don't know. I've mixed feelings. There's a time and a place, but on some level, it's just insulting. And pro wrestling could just say, hey, we're a show, and we could all fucking come out at the end of the show and bow and do a curtain call. I mean, we could. If we express pro wrestling as a form of entertainment, like any other form of entertainment, like any sort of theater or whatever, I'm not saying we should, but I don't know. I'm getting off on a tangent here.
Oh, it's
So,
okay. That's the MO of our show, is to get off in tangents. So it's
yeah,
okay.
I've mixed feelings about like, kayfabe, not kayfabe, and the other thing is on social media too. You know, everybody has different theories on pro wrestling, right? Some people say, um, you always want to seem larger than life, and as a pro wrestler, larger than life. You want the people to be in awe of you and all this stuff. Sure, I guess. I mean, that there's merit to that, but there's also merit to saying, "Hey, I'm a human being, and here I can tweet you back, and here's my life. My life's sort of like your life, and I'm just a guy, like you're just a guy, and people relate to you on that level." Which is something that, a guy like, Colt Cabana has done, I know very well. It's, so I don't think it's wrong to show people you're human, or, always have to be larger than life or whatever. I guess I have a sort of saying in wrestling. There's superheroes and there's heroes. And, Hulk Hogan was a superhero. But Steve Austin was a hero. Hulk Hogan was a comic book character, but Steve Austin was the guy you drink beer with, and they both work on different levels. So I don't know. There's another tangent, but social media, it's a pain in the ass. I wish it would go away.
Put
But
that
yeah,
in quotes.
I'll tell you this. And the other thing about social media too that I meant to say, that's I got off track. Really, you have to have it, right? But there's so much shit out there. There's so much stuff. This isn't even, a few years back when I was putting videos on YouTube, before everybody else was doing, because I invented that, because that's what you do in pro wrestling. But, a few years ago when I was doing that, it was, even though YouTube wasn't quite as popular, it was easier to get hits. Because there wasn't so much stuff on there. Now, to make an impact online, you have to cut through so much noise. Zack Ryder was able to do it. But, how many people have web shows now? And, of course, everybody's on Twitter. And it's just, even the people I follow, about 150, 160 people. And, if I even skim through Twitter, I skim through 140 characters. You don't even have the patience to look at all 140 letters. So while it's a necessary tool, it certainly isn't a tool that you should put too much weight into, because there's so much stuff out there that it's near pointless. Sometimes I see these guys and these videos they produce and things they try to do, and then I look on YouTube and they've got 50 hits or something, and it's necessary to do this stuff, but it's also a bit overrated.
Lords of Podcast Roundtable here with Jimmy Jacobs. Jimmy, I'm glad you brought up the heroes and superheroes, and one that, particularly in my mind, because I grew up watching, The Rock, and he was probably one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. And getting older now, his jokes are starting to wear and tear on me. But how do you feel as a working professional with somebody coming into your place of business? Say that you were working on the lower or mid card in WWE, and basically getting a huge paycheck to appear maybe once or twice a year, but now that all eyes are on WrestleMania, and it's that time of year again, him coming in and being the world champion, the brand champion in your company as you're working there night in, night out.
That's business, man, and it's The Rock has worked very hard for for many years, to do what he does, to position himself to where he merits that, and whether he merits it or not, I believe he does merit it, but whether he merits it or not, where he's gotten the WWE to agree to those sort of terms. So if you're we're all in control of our own destinies, and We're all capable of manifesting whatever we want in our lives. So just because you have not manifested that life for yourself, just because you haven't, put yourself in a position where you're as valuable as this guy, you can't begrudge somebody because of their success. Of course, you feel like you've been working hard and everything, and you've been there, and maybe you might feel slighted or something, but there's really no reason to. You could be The Rock too. Don't be mad at The Rock for being The Rock. He's just doing him, and he worked hard to do him. And if you want that huge paycheck like The Rock, you go out there and you become an asset like The Rock.
Indeed, sir. And this is going to be our final question. And it relates to you because I know that you've said that you are a huge Mick Foley fan, and I can co-sign on that because Mick Foley is probably, in my opinion, the greatest talker of all time. How do you compare yourself to Mr. Mick Foley, both being outcasts and not necessarily fitting the corporate mold of what a champion is supposed to look like, but how do you feel about him and also about his impending Hall of Fame, I guess just can say, induction?
I love Mick Foley. He was my hero when I was probably 14. When I saw him take that fall off the Hell in the Cell, and I remember after he took that Hell in the Cell match with the Undertaker, I remember I had to go outside and recoup and just. But it was before that I really connected with Mick Foley. It was his sit-down interviews with Jim Ross in '97. He came in as Mankind, was just this dark character, but then he has these sit-down interviews with Jim Ross that all of a sudden paint this three-dimensional picture of him, and all of a sudden his character has these dimensions and these motivations, and you see why Mankind is Mankind, and you see that he was the kid that did backyard wrestling, and he got picked on at school because he was a little bit funny and a little bit different, and he ate worms, and here I am, in freshman in high school or whatever, and I feel the same way as Mick Foley does. And when you talk about heroes and superheroes, Mick Foley was a hero. He was me. Mick Foley was never the top guy, because he had The Rock and he had Steve Austin. For sure Mick was champ or whatever, but he was never the top guy. But he was my guy, and he was your guy, and he was somebody else's guy. People connected with Mick Foley on a very, very deep level, and he was my hero growing up. Because of that, and I think he has that quality. And I got to work with Mick. He was in Ring of Honor for a little bit, and we didn't work together, but I got to know him a little bit there. But I got to work with him at a spot show in Michigan a couple years back. He was the guest enforcer in a match with me and Tyler Black for a small company in Kalkaska, Michigan, and Mick was a pleasure to work with on every level. Actually, Mick came to that show just to sign autographs, and I talked to him sort of into, getting involved in our angle, and it was so much fun, and he was great. He went there just expecting to sign autographs, and then went above and beyond just because that's the sort of guy he is. And not to get negative here, but it was right around the same time that Ric Flair was coming to coming into Ring of Honor, and there was a show in New York City. Rick would sign his autographs before the show, and then he would come out and cut a promo, after the second match or whatever. But that night he was advertised as the special enforcer for the main event, and all they wanted him to do was sit at ringside, and somebody tries to leave, Aries tries to leave, Flair throws him back in or something, and Flair just refused to do it. Flair wanted to go out there after the second match, cut his promo, and then just leave, and that's what he did. And there was a big argument, there was a fight in the back about it. They thought Flair had agreed to do this spot in the main event, and Flair's just, sue me, the money's already gone, sue me, I'm broke anyway, sue me. He's just acting a fool. So not to get negative, but the difference in it was almost the exact same situation where Mick showed like what a good guy and a good professional he is, and compared to the experience with Ric Flair, I think it might even be the same month. So not to bury Ric Flair, I'm sure he's got friends, I'm sure he's a nice guy or something or whatever, but it just shows that as a guy who's on that level, a Hall of Famer guy like Foley, like Ric Flair, you don't have to act nice. You don't have to go out of your way. You don't have to do more, for the younger guys. But Mick did, and I know he's helped out other guys. I know back in '04 he tried to get Punk and Samoa Joe signed to WWE. I know he's helped out Tyler Black. So Mick's the man. That's bottom line. And he's one of the greatest talkers. And I've certainly been influenced by both his in-ring work and promo styles.
Once again, I'd like to thank you, Jimmy, for your time. You've been very insightful. You've probably turned me personally into a bigger fan. I do apologize for Hustle not being able to join us, but that's the way of the internet, things go wrong. So, is there anything you'd like to send us off on?
Follow me on my hoe-ass Twitter. It's Jimmy Jacobs X. That's it. Just do that. And then, tweet me. And I won't tweet you back probably. So, but follow me, I guess, because that's what you're supposed to do. I'm still on MySpace too. Friend request me on MySpace.
And thank you all for tuning in. It's been a blast enjoying and listening to Jimmy Jacobs speak for the last 30 minutes. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, donate to the PayPal, buy the t-shirt, and take care, braid your hair. Good night, everybody.